Hello guys, today we're going to be talking about the lore and the possible future of 1.1 storyline. Today we're going to be talking and discovering more about the Cradle of the Ages. The Cradle of the Ages is what the villagers of the Origin Lodespring call the Great Orinium Oak. What they're actually referring to is what is left of it, which is the roots. Now let's read, and I'll explain why this is important. The administrator addressed this by planting the Great Orinium Oak, a creation of Originium arts in the Origin Lodespring region. People harvested branches and foliage from this arboreal marvel to establish the territory's first power plant and quarry, initiating a positive cycle for expansion. Approximately 2 decades ago, when the giant Agalos, Asteron, assaulted the valley and all countermeasures failed, the UWST made the fateful decision to detonate the Great Originium Oak. The catastrophic energy released and obliterated Asteron. Though only the root system remains of the Great Originium Oak today, stripped of its ability to rapidly generate Originium clusters, workers still honor this former guardian. They refer to the relic as the Cradle of the Ages, expressing gratitude for how it nurtured multiple generations in Valley 4. During the recent Valley 4 assault, a mere fragment from the hundreds of limbs belonging to the original Asteron reconstituted through anchor point activations. There was 3 anchor points. This new entity, designated Triagalos, was ultimately defeated by the administrator at the Cradle of the Ages site. Now, the reason why I point out 3 anchors is because it took 3 anchors to bring this Triagalos back to life. And we know that Agalos are attracted to anchors. Why would an Asteron, the great giant Agalos Asteron, randomly attack this area? There must have been an anchor. There's no question about it. It has to be a certain. Now, you might be wondering, I don't know what you would be wondering, I'm gonna be honest. Let's go ahead and read Nightmares from the Past. The Agalos, Asteron, actually was 100 meters in height. It was huge, right? And then we also hear that the Asteron featured over 1,000 spokes that twisted and rotated like a great circular vortex. And when the asteroid advanced, it covered the land with an ominous shade of dark red generated by the aether flowing in its immense form, a deathly zone for all living beings within. What is red and what is kinda dark? Light. This is connecting us to Wuling with just the blight, suggesting that there might be an Agalos leading the blight to Wuling, and we just haven't seen it. We just seen the coming of it, the telling of what might be coming. That's one speculation I have. But let's keep going. The special macro formation of Originium clusters known as the Great Originium Oak was used as a weapon when the Valley folk fought against the Asteron. But how did they do it? Did they simply use the oak as a bomb? The explosive yield of Originium would have completely devastated the whole Valley 4. I know this should not be something I'm supposed to ask, but our database only contains the most basic of data about the Great Originium Oak. So, saying that the UWST has no idea. This is coming from Perlica's mouth. And Perlica is a nerd, okay? We can trust when she's saying things. But right here, this is an important point she says. Lastly, and most importantly, be cautious, Edmund. Rumors and stories whispered by the crewmates about the Agalos may not be completely unfounded. Many dangers and hostile entities may be buried under the Origin Lodespring. You might run into something that should have died in the past. That's important because it suggests that we might even come back to the Origin Lodespring in the future. And I actually have strong evidence that we will be coming back through Rosie. This is very cool stuff. 100 meter tall Agalos that brings blight with it. We have not seen an enemy that brings blight with it. We just seen the Agalos around it. Nothing bringing the actual blight along. Now let's go to audio recordings. Right here, we're gonna hear the recordings of a guy that actually saw the Asteron in action. And now this will support my theory that the blight that the Asteron was creating, this red blood river that emanated from it, is actually blight. Now here, let's listen.
Fragments. 20 years ago. Residual energy. An agglomeration of blight. My memories. I shall make it controllable. I shall render the threat harmless. I shall succeed the giant Angelos that crushed my family and all my friends. that brings us face to face with the Angeloid essence. I shall look right at it. I shall gaze upon it from up high.
Now, right here, we see that he's talking about an agglomeration of light, suggesting that he saw blight around the Asteron, the thing that crushed his family. That is telling us it actually is blight. That red sludge that they were giving us in the Cradles of the Ages description is blight, 100%. Now let's go back to the Intel Gathering. Right here, we'll actually find a archive called Nightmares from the Past. Right here, where we'll see shared musings of a dream. And this even strongly backs up my theory that it's actually blight. I had a dream, a vision of blood-red river splitting upwind and mountain. Asteron is immersed in this river. It has returned. I gazed upon it. Despair was the only thing I felt. I thus turned around and ran downstream, down to the ruins of the oak. The great tree burned, and the fire consumed me, Asteron, and everything else. Is my dream coming true? What should we do? Right here, blood-red river, blight. I don't think blood splits mountains. The blight probably does. Now, right here, the Asteron is immersed in the river, the blood river. Isn't that insane? It's interesting. Now, this is a dream, so this next part could be dismissed as a part of the dream that she's having, of the viewer. I thus turned around and ran downstream. We already read in the Cradle of the Ages that nothing can live within the river, the ooze, the blight. You will just die. So this might be dismissed through just dream hallucinations and stuff like that, so we don't really need to worry about that. Now, this next part, we only care about this. This is an old person talking about how he can fight the anchors and that his age doesn't matter. Well, it actually matters because he's an old guy. So right here he says, and I've seen bigger anchors than those three. There's nothing to fear, children. Now this goes back to my theory where I said that it's not even a theory, it's a fact. Angelos are attracted by anchors. But he's saying that there's bigger anchors. We have only seen those anchors of those size. So if we think about this guy's past, it's possible that the thing that attracted Asteron was an even more massive anchor. And it's really cool. It's interesting because it didn't just attract Asteron, it also brought blight, which implies that maybe blight is part of the Agalos in some form, which I don't know yet. I haven't read everything yet, but this is interesting. I'm only talking about the origin Lodespring. Now let's go right here. A memo, an observer. I think this comes from that old lady from the main story, but the only part that really matters here is right here. Though I've spent years talking about this to countless individuals, only the Lupo girl who just arrived 2 days ago understands the gist. Now that one has a great future ahead of her. Who's this Lupo girl? The only Lupo girl that we have seen that has had an actual impact in the story is Rosie, a huge fan of Administrator. If this old lady retells her experience during the destruction of the Great Originium Oak Tree, she'll tell it to everybody and people would just look at her like, yeah, you're crazy, lady. No, that's not how it happened, or X, Y, and Z, or people just are too afraid to comprehend it to what she actually saw because maybe she knows what truly happened. And she tells this to Rosie, somebody that already exaggerates the things that Edmund has done in her life, suggesting that she is going to easily believe what this old lady had to say about us. This means we possibly might know or get to learn how this Originium Oak Tree was destroyed, and even possibly get to know how it was created. Now, she won't know how it was created, but she would get the gist of it and probably would retell it to the Edmund and through Rosie. And by doing so, Edmund will probably get some parts of his memories back, which will be the first step towards finding the mystery of what the Administrator is all about. That's why I'm excited for Rosie, not because I like her playstyle. That is just like the strawberry on the cake. Just with all this information, we got an idea what is happening in Wuling. The big lake of light that's coming towards Wooling and the fight against it with Serenite suggests that there might be a big, massive anchor behind the wall of Wooling. What's behind that wall? We'll probably find out later because we're not going straight to there in 1.2. But guess what we're going to be learning about in 1.1? We're going to be learning about Rosie's story. And from Rosie's story, we're going to learn so much of this mystery. And I'm excited. I'm so excited for it because they blew up the tree, right? And right here, this is the last piece of evidence that is actually really crazy cool and awesome. Right here, extremely emotional. We'll just detonate. This is coming from the perspective of the UWST party that fought against these guys. We'll just detonate the great Originium Oak one more time. We still have the oak stump at the cradle of the ages. If we find a way to rig it for detonation, we'll send every Pipeface and Bugger Lord around it to Talos. But how do we get past the shockwaves? Could we try using the original marks? We could throw the demolition crew and charges over. What I just read is suggesting that people were killing themselves to try to blow up the Great Originium Oak. Why would they try to kill themselves? Here is the big gabagoo. If you look at how the original oak tree area looks, it looks like every anchor area we have seen. The rocks are clustered and they're pointing upwards. And it actually, I believe that the anchor, the big ass anchor that I've been talking about, actually landed inside of the original Great Oak. And by them blowing up the tree, they were actually getting rid of it. But you know what's around the Great Tree? There was probably billions of Agalos down there. And let alone that, they also had Asteron walking over there, on top of all of this horribleness. This is exciting. This is exciting stuff. And to think that once they blew this up, and I believe this, once they blew up the tree, it acted as a form of a drain system. It just flushed all the blight into the ground. That's why we see in the surrounding areas of the Origin Lodespring, there's a lot of light in these big, massive gaps in the hole. And yes, it might be connected to the Aether site. During the main story, we see that it has a big impact and it's causing the blight to act up. But the blight is coming from the undergrounds. This is blight that has been underground for 20 years. We just saw that the Triagolos came back after the anchors. The 3 anchors arrived. That was a piece of Astron. That's the thing that came out of the ground, right? Now, who's to say that there's not even more Agalos underground in there? We can't say. Nobody can say. The only way we find out is through Rosie's story in 1.1. One thing that Arknights Enfield does is tell a good ass story. And if I'm right, this might be the most exciting character story quest we might have yet. Now, thank you guys for watching. I know I'm very everywhere in the place. Please read the lore things. I know you guys could probably do a better job than me. Please make a YouTube channel. Do this. I don't think I've seen a lot of lore videos. But yeah, get to it, boys. I'm excited.